Hey everyone, welcome to another video where we break down and explain the parables that Jesus taught in the Bible. And without further ado, let's jump right into today's parable. Do you know what type of soil you are? You might not think it's important to understand that, but in today's video, we're going to talk about the parable that Jesus gave us that explains 4 types of soils and how that can help us understand how to receive the Word of God, so that it can actually produce fruit in our lives. Let's dive right into this. In Matthew chapter 13 verses 18 to 23, it says, "Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When a sower went out to sow, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky places where they had no soil, and immediately they withered away. And others fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked the plants. But as for what was sown on good soil, it yielded a harvest, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. And when he who had sown saw that, he was greatly amazed, saying, What more shall this fig tree produce?" This parable is also known as the parable of the soils, and it was recorded by all 4 gospel writers. Now, before we dive into the explanation of the parable, let's take a moment to identify the main characters or the main things happening in this parable. We have the sower, which represents a person who is sowing seed. And the seed that's being sown represents the Word of God. Then we have the soil where the seed is sown. So basically, there are 4 different types of soils that the seed fell on. And each of these soils represent different types of people. Now let's dive into the explanation of this parable. In Mark 4, verse 3 to 9, it says the sower sows the word. So the first thing that happens is the sower goes out to sow his seed. This represents someone who is sowing the Word of God. And then the seed that he is sowing represents the Word itself. Now as the Word of God is being sown, it starts to fall on different types of soils. And the first soil that it falls on is described as the path or the highway. And this represents people whose hearts are hardened and they don't really care about the things of God. As soon as the birds see that there's some seeds on the ground, they immediately come and eat those seeds up. And that shows us that as soon as the Word of God touches their hearts, they immediately reject it. The second type of soil that the seed is sown on is described as rocky places with no soil. And this represents people who hear the Word of God and they accept it, but they don't have any depth in their faith. As soon as the sun comes up, that seed immediately withers away because it has no root system. It has no soil. And that represents people who don't have any depth in their faith. They don't water it with their actions. They don't feed it with their thoughts. They don't fertilize it with their words. And as a result, their faith doesn't last very long. The third type of soil that the seed is sown on is among thorns. And this represents people who hear the Word of God, but the cares and the worries of life start to choke out that Word. They start to focus on other things. They start to get caught up in other things. And as a result, that seed doesn't have a chance to grow and produce fruit. However, the 4th type of soil is described as good soil. And this represents people who truly receive the Word of God. They hear it, they accept it, and then they allow it to grow and produce fruit. And it goes on to say that some of the seeds that were sown on the good soil, some produced a yield of 100, some 60, some 30. And that shows us that some people will hear the Word of God and will produce an incredible amount of fruit. Some will produce a lot of fruit, and some will just produce a little bit. However, the main point of this parable is not to measure who produces the most fruit or who produces the least. The main point is to show us that if we want to produce fruit, we must be good soil. So let me ask you, what type of soil are you? Are you the path where the birds come and eat up the seed? Are you the rocky soil where the seed withers away? Are you the thorny soil where the cares of life choke out the seed? Or are you the good soil where the seed is able to grow and produce fruit? We hope that this video has been a blessing to you and that you have learned something new about the parable of the sower. If you did enjoy this video, we ask that you would like, comment, and share this with your friends and family. We would love to hear from you in the comments as well. So make sure to comment down below with any thoughts, notes, or even other Bible studies you'd like us to break down. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.